Lately, the channel has a lot of assets. You can subscribe to the channel, thereby greatly help its promotion and raise the asset. Thank you. In the year 2013, in a peaceful neighborhood in Minnesota, the sun beamed down on the picturesque streets. Jane and Mark, a married couple, found themselves in possession of two old iPhones they wanted to sell. Eager to make a quick sale, they turned to Craigslist, hoping to find a potential buyer. The couple posted an ad online, and to their delight, they received several responses from interested buyers. After carefully considering their options, they settled on one potential buyer named Tyler Ronald Stewart. Tyler seemed enthusiastic about purchasing the phones and agreed to meet them in person. They arranged to meet Tyler at a local park, a public space where they felt safe and visible to others. As they approached the park on that sunny afternoon, Jane and Mark's hearts were filled with anticipation. Little did they know that their lives were about to take a terrifying turn. As they reached the park, they spotted a young man standing near a tree. He appeared nervous, holding a phone and glancing around anxiously. Assuming this was Tyler, they confidently approached him, unaware of the imminent danger that awaited them. Suddenly, without warning, Tyler swiftly pulled a gun from his pocket and pointed it directly at Jane and Mark. Time seemed to stand still as fear coursed through their veins, paralyzing them with dread. "Give me your phones and wallets, or I'll shoot," Tyler demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. Jane and Mark, caught off guard and overwhelmed by terror, complied without hesitation. They handed over their phones and wallets, praying that this would be enough to satisfy their attacker and spare their lives. However, Tyler's greed knew no bounds. Unsatisfied with their initial surrender, Tyler intensified his demands, threatening to shoot them if they didn't comply further. Desperation etched across their faces. Jane and Mark had no choice but to give in to his demands, their hearts pounding in their chests. Having taken everything they possessed, Tyler snatched the items from their trembling hands and hastily retreated, disappearing into the nearby woods. Left alone, shaken, and traumatized, Jane and Mark mustered the courage to call the police, their trembling voices relaying the horrific ordeal they had just endured. Within minutes, law enforcement arrived at the park, their sirens piercing the previously serene atmosphere. They swiftly took charge, comforting Jane and Mark, while diligently gathering every detail of the incident. Determined to bring the perpetrator to justice, the police launched a full-scale investigation. Using the park's surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts from passers-by, the police managed to identify Tyler as one of the assailants. With their leads in hand, they diligently tracked him down and apprehended him, ensuring that he would face the consequences of his actions. Tyler was charged with assault and robbery with a weapon, and during his trial, he pleaded guilty, confessing to his role in the crime. He offered a glimpse into the events leading up to the attack, revealing that he and his accomplices had been under the influence of drugs, which heightened their aggression and fueled their violent actions. The judge, determined to protect the community from such acts of violence, handed down a harsh sentence. Tyler was sentenced to 27 years in prison. A firm message sent that society would not tolerate such heinous acts. As for Jane and Mark, they struggled to find solace in the aftermath of the traumatic incident. They soon realized that they had narrowly escaped with their lives and were consumed by a newfound appreciation for their safety. They vowed to themselves that they would never again put themselves in harm's way or take unnecessary risks. The experience left an indelible mark on their lives, a reminder of the fragility of human existence and the importance of valuing one's own well-being. They sought support and therapy to heal from the trauma, drawing strength from each other as they gradually rebuilt their lives. In the small town of Millfield, located in the heart of Illinois, there was a dark and disturbing incident that shook the community to its core. It all started in the year 2022, when Mark Reynolds, a college student struggling to make ends meet, decided to sell his old iPhone. With mounting bills and a desire to earn some extra cash, he posted an ad on Craigslist, hoping to find a buyer. Days passed, and Mark began to lose hope of finding a buyer for his phone. But then, on a rainy evening in early October, he received an email response from a potential buyer named John Thompson. John expressed interest in the phone and proposed meeting in person to finalize the deal. The email seemed harmless enough, and Mark, eager to make the sale, agreed to the meeting. On a chilly Friday afternoon in the year 2022, Mark made his way to a nearby park to meet John. He didn't think much of it at the time, as he had bought and sold items on Craigslist before without incident. However, as he arrived at the park, his heart sank. John was not alone. He was accompanied by two other men, who seemed to be lurking in the shadows. Mark's instincts told him that something was off, but before he could react, John suddenly lunged at him. In a moment of sheer terror, Mark realized that he was being attacked. He desperately tried to defend himself, but in the chaos that ensued, a gunshot rang out. The bullet pierced through Mark's chest, leaving him gasping for breath as he fell to the ground. Unbeknownst to Mark, a passerby had witnessed the horrifying scene unfold. They immediately dialed 911, and within minutes, police cars and an ambulance were rushing towards the park. When the authorities arrived, they found Mark lying in a pool of his own blood, barely clinging to life. The paramedics worked frantically to stabilize him before rushing him to the nearest hospital. The news of Mark's murder spread like wildfire throughout the town of Millfield. Shock and disbelief gripped the community, and a wave of anger washed over its residents. The police launched a full-scale investigation, determined to bring the perpetrators to justice. As days turned into weeks, the authorities painstakingly pieced together the events leading up to Mark's tragic demise. They discovered that John Thompson had a criminal history and had been involved in other thefts and acts of violence related to Craigslist transactions. It became clear that Mark had unknowingly stumbled into a dangerous trap set by a group of criminals. Finally, the police managed to track down and apprehend John, along with his two accomplices. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and they were charged not only with Mark's murder, but also with a string of other crimes related to Craigslist scams and thefts. The trial that followed was intense and emotional. Mark's family and friends attended every court session, hoping for a sense of closure. The evidence presented against John and his accomplices painted a grim picture of their nefarious activities. The judge and jury were appalled by the callousness of the crimes committed. After careful deliberation, the jury delivered a guilty verdict. John Thompson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His accomplices, facing a mountain of evidence against them, also received lengthy prison sentences. While the community found some solace in the fact that justice had been served, they were left grappling with a profound sense of loss and a lingering question. What could have been done to prevent such a tragedy? The incident served as a stark reminder to the people of Millfield and beyond about the dangers of conducting business with strangers online. It ignited a renewed conversation about personal safety and the importance of taking precautions when meeting with people in person. In the aftermath of Mark's murder, the town came together to establish safety measures for online transactions. The police department collaborated with community leaders to create safe zones for exchanges, where people could conduct their transactions under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Mark's family and friends, devastated by their loss, channeled their grief into advocacy work. They started a foundation in his memory dedicated to raising awareness about the risks associated with online transactions and providing support to victims of similar crimes. The tragedy left an indelible mark on the community of Millfield. It served as a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of staying vigilant in an increasingly interconnected world. Mark's memory lived on in the hearts of those who knew him, and the lessons learned from his untimely death served as a beacon of caution and resilience for generations to come. In the year 2022, in the bustling city of Arlington, Texas, a sense of anticipation hung in the air as the scorching summer sun beat down on the streets. Among the crowd, 26-year-old Carrie Johnson, a friendly and tech-savvy young man decided to sell his iPhone through Craigslist. Having used the site before without any issues, he saw it as a convenient way to find a buyer quickly. Carey carefully crafted an ad, highlighting the features of his phone and posting it on the popular online platform. Within a few hours, a message popped up in his inbox from a potential buyer named Marcus Thompson. Marcus expressed his interest in the phone and suggested meeting at a nearby apartment complex to inspect and finalize the purchase. Initially, Carey felt a twinge of hesitation, meeting someone he didn't know in person. However, the allure of a quick sale and the public nature of the location reassured him. To err on the side of caution, he invited his friend, David Anderson, to accompany him to the meeting. Safety in numbers, they thought. Days turned into nights, and the fateful evening arrived. Carey and David made their way to the designated meeting spot at the apartment complex, where Marcus awaited their arrival. As they exchanged greetings, Marcus seemed like an ordinary person, with no indications of the sinister intentions that lay beneath his facade. Carey handed over the phone to Marcus, who carefully inspected it, pretending to be genuinely interested. Then Marcus made a peculiar request. He asked Carey to remove the SIM card from the device for closer examination. Unbeknownst to Carey, this seemingly innocent act would be the trigger that set forth a chain of events that would shatter lives. Trusting Marcus, Carey complied without giving it a second thought. In that instant, as the SIM card left its slot, Marcus swiftly reached into his pocket and brandished a firearm. Panic and disbelief gripped Carey and David as they realized they had fallen into a carefully orchestrated trap. In the blink of an eye, Marcus fired his gun, the deafening sound shattering the tranquility of the parking lot. Bullets pierced through the air, striking Carey multiple times in the chest and thigh. David, driven by instinct and desperation, lunged towards Marcus to protect his friend, but was too late to prevent the onslaught. In a cruel twist of fate, Marcus fled the scene, leaving Carey gasping for breath, lying helplessly on the ground, his life hanging in the balance. The echoes of sirens blared through the night as David quickly dialed emergency services, his voice trembling with fear and urgency. Within moments, police cruisers screeched to a halt, and paramedics rushed to the critically injured Carey's side. Despite their best efforts, the medical team struggled to stabilize him. The battle to save Carey's life was valiant, but tragically, he succumbed to his injuries a few hours later, leaving a void in the hearts of his family and friends. News of the heinous crime spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the Arlington community. The brutal incident served as a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking within the realm of online transactions. The police wasted no time launching a comprehensive investigation, uncovering the intricate web of deceit woven by Marcus. Their inquiries revealed that Marcus had created a fake Craigslist account, meticulously planning the attack well in advance. He had carefully selected the parking lot of the apartment complex, having scoped out the area beforehand, waiting patiently for his unsuspecting prey. Days turned into sleepless nights for the Arlington Police Department, but that dedication bore fruit. A few days later, they apprehended 18-year-old Dion Williams, a known criminal with a history of violence, on charges of murder and robbery. The arrest provided a glimmer of solace to a grieving community, reassuring them that justice would be served. The tragic loss of Carey sent shockwaves through the city, leaving its residents grappling with a mixture of sorrow, anger, and fear. In the aftermath of the incident, the police and local authorities rallied to spread awareness about the perils of online transactions. They urged people to exercise caution, verify the identities of potential buyers or sellers, and choose well-lit public locations for meetings. Carey's family, devastated by the unimaginable loss, found solace in the overwhelming support they received from the community. Determined to prevent similar tragedies from befalling others, they established the Carey Johnson Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to raising awareness about the dangers of online transactions and promoting safety guidelines. In the end, Carey's untimely demise stood as a poignant reminder of the need for vigilance in an increasingly interconnected world. It underscored the importance of being aware of our surroundings, trusting our instincts, and taking precautionary measures to protect ourselves from potential dangers. As a united community, empowered with knowledge and determination, we have the power to ensure that the echoes of tragedy fade away, replaced by the harmonious symphony of safety and empathy. In the year 2019, in the bustling state of Texas, a young college student named Sarah embarked on a journey that would forever alter the course of her life. Seeking a new laptop, she perused the internet and stumbled upon a promising deal on Craigslist. Unbeknownst to her, this seemingly innocuous decision would soon plunge her into a perilous ordeal. Sarah, a spirited and adventurous soul, arranged to meet the vendor at a residential address. With excitement and anticipation, she made her way to the designated location. As she arrived, the sun painted the sky with vibrant hues, casting a warm glow over the surroundings. Little did she know that this serene day would soon transform into a nightmare. As Sarah approached the house, two men, clad in casual attire, greeted her at the door. They exuded an air of congeniality, putting her initial concerns at ease. The men, introducing themselves as Mike and Jake, invited her inside. With hesitant trust, Sarah stepped across the threshold, unaware of the sinister intentions that lay hidden beneath their facade. The interior of the house seemed ordinary, with hints of a typical suburban dwelling. Amidst casual chit-chat, the vendor unveiled the laptop Sarah had come to purchase. The device gleamed under the soft glow of the room, its allure captivating her attention. A brief conversation ensued, causing Sarah's excitement to soar. However, as fate would have it, a dark twist awaited her. In an abrupt and startling turn of events, one of the men, Mike, seized Sarah's arm, his grip unyielding and forceful. Panic gripped her heart as she struggled, but her efforts proved futile against the overwhelming strength of her captor. With a swift motion, Jake slammed the door shut, barricading them from the outside world. A chilling realization settled upon Sarah's trembling form as the menacing duo made their demands. The once friendly countenance of Mike and Jake transformed into malevolent masks of greed and violence. They demanded her valuables, her phone, her wallet, and any possession of worth. Fear surged through Sarah's veins as she hesitated, desperately clinging to the remnants of her personal security. The atmosphere crackled with tension, and Sarah's every instinct screamed for her to escape. However, her desperate pleas fell upon deaf ears, drowned out by the impending storm. The men, fueled by their ruthless desires, began to rain blows upon her defenseless form. Fists collided with flesh, mercilessly shattering the fragile facade of her safety. A bat, snatched from the depths of the garage, became an instrument of torment, amplifying Sarah's agony. Silenced by the brutality, Sarah's voice was muffled by a cloth gag, rendering her cries for help mere echoes in the desolate room. Darkness enveloped her senses as she succumbed to the unyielding assault, the world fading into a void of unconsciousness. The assailants, satisfied with their ill-gotten gains, departed, leaving Sarah discarded and broken on the cold, unforgiving floor. It was a serendipitous encounter with destiny that a passerby discovered Sarah lying battered and bruised on the desolate sidewalk. A compassionate soul dialed emergency services, summoning the aid that Sarah so desperately needed. The wailing sirens of an ambulance pierced the air, racing against time to deliver her to the sanctuary of the nearest hospital. Medical professionals, armed with compassion and expertise, fought valiantly to mend the wounds that marred Sarah's body. A broken arm, multiple bruises, and a debilitating concussion testified to the cruelty she had endured. News of the harrowing incident reached Sarah's parents, sending shockwaves of anguish and concern coursing through their veins. Without hesitation, they rushed to the hospital, their love and support the beacon of solace amidst the storm. Meanwhile, the gears of justice began to turn as the police launched a relentless investigation into the heinous crime. With determination and unwavering resolve, they traced the address Sarah had ventured to, unraveling the tangled threads of the malevolence that had plagued her. The identities of the assailants were unveiled, and the hands that had wrought havoc on Sarah's life would soon face the scales of justice. The wheels of the legal system ground on as the court case unfolded, spanning months of relentless pursuit for truth and retribution. Mike and Jake, their hearts burdened with guilt, could no longer deny the weight of their transgressions. With heavy hearts, they pleaded guilty to the charges brought against them: robbery, assault, and the heinous act of kidnapping. The gavel of justice struck, echoing through the courtroom, as the judge delivered a sentence commensurate with the magnitude of their crimes. Mike and Jake were condemned to languish behind cold, unforgiving bars, their freedom forever stripped away. For Sarah, healing was an arduous journey that extended far beyond the mending of her physical wounds. The trauma inflicted upon her had seeped into the depths of her being, leaving an indelible mark upon her spirit. Anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder became unwelcome companions in her daily life, casting shadows on even the most mundane of tasks. Sarah found solace in counseling, a lifeline that helped her navigate the treacherous terrain of her emotions. Though her scars may never fade entirely, Sarah's resilient spirit carried her through the darkest of days. The support of her family and the strength she discovered within herself propelled her forward. With unwavering determination, she returned to her studies, refusing to allow the harrowing incident to steal her dreams. She completed her degree, a testament to her unwavering resolve in the face of adversity. Sarah's story served as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the perils that lurk beneath the guise of trust in the online realm. It stood as a resounding call for vigilance and caution when engaging in transactions with strangers. The incident served as a catalyst for change, a vivid reminder that safety should never be taken for granted. In the vast tapestry of her life, Sarah found purpose in sharing her experience, hoping that her story would serve as a guiding light for others. She yearned to prevent others from traversing the treacherous path that she had unwillingly walked. Armed with wisdom and resilience, she embarked on a mission to raise awareness, empowering others to prioritize their safety and well-being. As time unfolded, Sarah's wounds began to heal, both physically and emotionally. She emerged from the ashes of her past, forever changed, but stronger than ever. The world may have scared her, but it could not extinguish the flame that burned within her. With her indomitable spirit as her compass, she embraced life's challenges, determined to seize every moment with a newfound appreciation for the fragility and resilience of the human spirit. Lisa had decided to sell her beloved headphones on Craigslist, hoping to make some extra cash. Little did she know that this simple act would set off a chain of events that would leave her feeling terrified and threatened. It was a typical evening when Lisa posted an ad for her headphones. She wasn't expecting much, just a quick and straightforward transaction. To her surprise, a guy named Mike, who went by the nickname Squirrely, messaged her expressing interest. They quickly negotiated a price and agreed on a time and location for the exchange. Unfortunately, on the day of the meeting, Lisa found herself caught up in a prior engagement and couldn't make it. She reluctantly asked her boyfriend, Jake, to go in her place. After all, it was just a simple headphone sale, or so they thought. Days went by, and Lisa didn't think much of the transaction until her inbox was flooded with angry emails from Squirrely. He was furious that she hadn't shown up in person, as he had expected a female seller. Squirrely accused Lisa of betraying their agreement and demanded that she settle this by visiting his home address. Lisa was taken aback by Squirrely's aggressive behavior, and she started to feel increasingly uneasy about the situation. Who was this guy, and what did he want from her? The harassment continued for several days, leaving Lisa feeling anxious and unsafe. In a desperate attempt to put an end to the harassment, Lisa threatened to involve the police and block Squirrely's messages. She hoped that would be the end of it, but the feeling of unease lingered in her mind. She couldn't shake the nagging question of what would have happened if she had gone to his house. Would she have been safe? One night, as Lisa lay in bed, Drifting off to sleep, she heard a strange noise outside her window. It was a chilling sound, like scratching, as if someone was trying to pry it open. Her heart raced, and she lay frozen, not daring to move or make a sound. The scratching continued, tormenting her for what felt like an eternity, until it finally ceased. Lisa desperately tried to convince herself that it was merely a branch brushing against the window, but deep down, she knew it was something far more sinister. Over the next few days, Lisa's unease grew into a pervasive sense of being watched. Every time she left her house, she had the uncanny sensation of being followed. She started noticing strange cars parked near her apartment building, their occupants seemingly observing her every move. Fear began to consume her every waking moment. Then, one fateful day, a package arrived in the mail. It was anonymous, devoid of any sender's name or address. Lisa cautiously opened it, only to find a pair of headphones inside. To her horror, they were identical to the ones she had sold to Squirrely. Attached to the headphones was a chilling note that read, "I hope you're enjoying them, just like I'm enjoying watching you." Her heart pounded in her chest as the realization struck her. Squirrely had been stalking her all along. The fear intensified, threatening to engulf her completely. Lisa knew she had to take action, but she felt lost and unsure of where to turn. She confided in Jake, her ever-supportive boyfriend, who urged her to prioritize their safety. Together, they decided to install security cameras around their apartment. Hoping to catch any suspicious activity and gather evidence against Squirrely. They also contacted the local police, who took their concerns seriously and advised them to remain vigilant and report any further developments. Days turned into weeks, and the constant state of fear began to take a toll on Lisa's mental and emotional well-being. She couldn't sleep, eat, or even step outside her home without feeling the oppressive weight of being watched. The situation seemed unbearable, and she teetered on the edge of despair. Just as Lisa was about to lose hope, the police called her with an astonishing piece of news. They had managed to apprehend Squirrely for breaking into a woman's house and assaulting her. In a stroke of luck, they discovered a cache of stolen items in his apartment, including the headphones Lisa had sold him. The relief washed over her like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. Squirrely was off the streets and unable to harm anyone else. However, even with Squirrely behind bars, the fear still lingered in Lisa's mind. She knew that there were others out there, individuals like Squirrely, waiting to prey on innocent victims. As she gazed out her window, her eyes scanning the shadows, she couldn't help but wonder if someone else was watching her, biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And so, the story of Lisa's harrowing encounter serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the seemingly mundane aspects of our lives. It urges us to remain vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to take action when we sense even the slightest hint of danger. For in this world, where anonymity and deception can thrive, it is only through our own strength and resilience that we can emerge from the shadows unscathed. In the year 2013, in the peaceful town of Michigan, the residents went about their daily lives, unaware of the tragedy that was about to unfold. It was a tight-knit community, where everyone knew their neighbors and felt safe in their small town. However, that sense of security was shattered one fateful day when a brutal murder occurred, sending shockwaves through the entire town. The victim was a young woman named Sarah Thompson, a kind-hearted and ambitious individual who had recently moved to Michigan to start a new chapter in her life. Sarah had come across an enticing advertisement on Craigslist for a car that seemed too good to pass up. Eager to find a reliable vehicle for her daily commute, she contacted the seller and arranged to meet him at a local park. On a sunny afternoon, Sarah arrived at the meeting place, filled with hope and excitement. Little did she know that the man behind the advertisement had nefarious intentions. As she stepped out of her car, a man emerged from the shadows and attacked her without warning. The assailant, whose name was David Mitchell, unleashed a vicious assault on Sarah. He beat her mercilessly, leaving her battered and bleeding on the ground. With a cold and calculated demeanor, David stole her car and fled the scene, leaving Sarah fighting for her life. News of the horrific crime spread rapidly throughout the town, striking fear into the hearts of the residents. The police were immediately summoned to the scene, and an intensive investigation was launched. The town's once peaceful atmosphere was now overshadowed by a sense of unease and uncertainty. The police tirelessly worked to uncover any leads that could help them solve the case. They interviewed witnesses who had been in the vicinity of the park, scoured the area for surveillance footage, and reached out to the public for any information that could aid their investigation. However, the killer seemed to have left no trace behind, leaving the police frustrated and perplexed. Days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, but the case remained unsolved. The people of Michigan grew increasingly anxious and restless. They yearned for justice, demanding that the killer be apprehended and brought to account for his heinous act. Just as hope began to wane, a breakthrough occurred. A witness who had seen the killer on the day of the murder remembered a crucial detail. They recalled seeing him driving a car that matched the description of Sarah's stolen vehicle. This vital information gave the investigation a renewed sense of purpose. The police meticulously followed up on this lead, conducting thorough background checks and surveillance on individuals associated with similar vehicles. Their persistence paid off when they discovered that David Mitchell had a history of violence and drug abuse. Further investigations revealed that he had used Craigslist in the past to lure and victimize unsuspecting individuals. The puzzle pieces fell into place, connecting David Mitchell to a string of similar crimes committed through Craigslist. The realization sent shockwaves through the town, as they came to terms with the fact that a dangerous predator had been living among them. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. David Mitchell was apprehended, and overwhelming evidence linked him to Sarah Thompson's brutal murder. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that the man responsible for instilling fear and anguish within their town would face justice. During the trial, it was revealed that David had meticulously planned his crimes, targeting vulnerable individuals who sought to buy or sell items on Craigslist. His manipulation of the online platform had allowed him to exploit people's trust, leading to devastating consequences. The jury had found David Mitchell guilty of murder, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While justice was served, the scars left by the tragic event would forever linger in the hearts and minds of the people of Michigan. The murder in Michigan served as a grim reminder of the dangers that could lurk behind the anonymity of online services. It prompted the authorities to take action, launching campaigns and initiatives to educate the public about the importance of online safety. Citizens were urged to exercise caution and follow safety protocols when engaging in transactions or meetings arranged through platforms like Craigslist. The town came together to support one another, fostering a stronger sense of community and vigilance against potential threats. In 2017 in Seattle, Paige Ellington was a struggling freelance writer who needed some extra cash. She decided to sell her old laptop through Craigslist, hoping to get a good deal. She posted an ad online and soon received a reply from someone who claimed to be interested in buying it. He offered to pay $300 for the laptop, which was more than Paige expected. He also said he could meet her at a nearby Starbucks the next day. Paige agreed to the offer and packed her laptop and charger in a backpack. She also brought her wallet, phone, and keys with her. She took a bus to the Starbucks and waited for the buyer to show up. She checked her phone and saw a text message from him saying he was running late and asked her to wait for him outside. Paige thought it was odd, but she decided to comply. She grabbed her backpack and walked out of the coffee shop. She stood on the sidewalk and looked around for the buyer. She saw a man wearing a hoodie and jeans walking towards her. He had a friendly smile on his face and waved at her. Paige assumed he was the buyer and waved back. She walked towards him and greeted him. "Hi, are you here for the laptop?" she asked. "Yes, I am. Thanks for waiting for me," he said. "No problem." "Do you have the money?" she asked. "Of course. "Let me see the laptop first," he said. Paige nodded and opened her backpack. She took out the laptop and handed it to him. He took it and examined it briefly. "It looks good. Can I turn it on?" he asked. "Sure, go ahead," Paige said. He opened the laptop and pressed the power button. The screen lit up and showed the login screen. He typed something on the keyboard and hit enter. The laptop beeped and displayed an error message saying the password was incorrect. "Oops, sorry. I forgot to tell you the password," Paige said. She reached for the laptop to type in the password, but he pulled it away from her. "That's okay. I don't need it," he said. He closed the laptop and tucked it under his arm. He turned around and started to walk away. "Hey, wait a minute. Where are you going?" Paige shouted. She realized he was trying to steal her laptop and ran after him. She grabbed his shoulder and tried to pull him back. "Give me back my laptop." "You can't just take it," she yelled. He shrugged off her hand and pushed her away. He ran towards a parked car with tinted windows. He opened the door and threw the laptop inside. He got in the car and slammed the door shut. Paige followed him and banged on the window. "Open up. Give me back my laptop," she screamed. He ignored her and started the engine. He reversed the car and hit Paige's backpack, which she had dropped on the ground. The backpack flew into the air and landed on the roof of another car. Paige watched in horror as her wallet, phone and keys spilled out of the backpack. The thief drove away, leaving Paige behind. She was stunned and angry. She had just lost her laptop and all her personal belongings to a stranger who had tricked her online. She felt helpless and violated. She looked around for help, but no one seemed to notice what had happened. The people on the street were busy with their own lives, oblivious to her plight. She felt alone and scared. Paige took a deep breath, trying to calm herself down. She knew she needed to take action and report the incident to the police. With shaky hands, she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, which miraculously hadn't been taken by the thief. She dialed 911 and quickly explained the situation to the operator. Within minutes, a police car arrived at the scene. Officer Johnson, a sympathetic and understanding officer, stepped out of the vehicle and approached Paige. She recounted the entire incident to him, providing as much detail as she could remember about the thief and his car. Officer Johnson assured Paige that they would do everything they could to find the thief and retrieve her stolen belongings. He took down her contact information and promised to keep her updated on the progress of the investigation. Although Paige appreciated his support, a part of her couldn't shake off the feeling that her laptop and personal belongings were gone forever. Days turned into weeks, and Paige anxiously waited for news from the police. She started to lose hope, thinking that her case had been forgotten among the numerous other crimes that police dealt with on a daily basis. However, just when she was about to give up, Officer Johnson contacted her with a surprising update. The police had managed to identify the thief through security camera footage from the area. It turned out that he was part of a larger criminal organization involved in various thefts around the city. With the evidence gathered, they were able to apprehend him and bring him to justice. Paige felt a mix of relief and satisfaction, knowing that the person who had stolen from her had been caught. However, her relief was short-lived when Officer Johnson informed her that despite their efforts, her stolen items, including the laptop, couldn't be recovered. The thief had disposed of them, likely to cover his tracks and avoid being connected to the crimes. Paige felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. Losing her laptop was not just a financial setback, but it also meant losing countless hours of hard work and cherished memories stored within it. She had hoped that justice would bring her belongings back, but now she had to accept that they were gone forever. In 2018, in Los Angeles, Jake Miller was a huge fan of the rock band Metallica. He had always wanted to see them live, but he never had the chance. He was thrilled when he heard they were coming to his city for a concert. He checked online for tickets, but they were all sold out. He was disappointed and frustrated. He decided to look for tickets on Craigslist, hoping to find someone who was willing to sell them for a reasonable price. He browsed through the ads and found one that caught his eye. It said, "Metallica tickets for sale. 2 seats in section and row 10. $200 each. Cash only. Meet in person. Text me if interested." Jake was excited and texted the number right away. He got a reply from someone who called himself Mike. "Hi, Mike. I have the tickets you're looking for. Are you still interested?" "Yes, I am. Where can we meet?" Jake asked. "I'm at the corner of 5th and Main. There's a McDonald's there. Can you come now?" Mike asked. "Sure, I can be there in 15 minutes, Jake said. "Great. See you soon," Mike said. Jake grabbed his wallet and keys and ran out of his apartment. He hailed a cab and told the driver to take him to 5th and Main. He checked his wallet and saw he had $500 in cash. He hoped it was enough to buy the tickets. He arrived at the McDonald's and looked for Mike. He saw a man standing outside the entrance, holding a brown envelope. He had short black hair and a stubble beard. He wore a leather jacket and jeans. He looked like a typical Metallica fan. Jake approached him and smiled. "Hi, are you Mike?" he asked. "Yes, I am. And you must be Jake," Mike said. "That's right. Nice to meet you," Jake said. "Likewise. So, you're here for the tickets?" Mike asked. "Yes, I am. Can I see them?" Jake asked. "Sure, no problem," Mike said. He opened the envelope and showed Jake 2 pieces of paper that looked like concert tickets. They had the Metallica logo and the date and venue of the concert printed on them. "Here they are, 2 seats in section and row 10. The best seats in the house," Mike said. "They look amazing. How much do you want for them?" Jake asked. $200 each. That's a fair price, don't you think?" Mike asked. "I guess so," Jake said. He wasn't sure if the tickets were real or fake, but he didn't want to miss this opportunity. He reached for his wallet and took out $400 in cash. "Here you go," he said. He handed the money to Mike and reached for the envelope with the tickets. Mike took the money and counted it quickly. He smiled and nodded. "Thank you very much," he said. He handed the envelope to Jake and turned around to walk away. Jake took the envelope and opened it eagerly. He pulled out the tickets and looked at them closely. He felt a surge of joy and excitement as he held them in his hands. He had just bought Metallica tickets. He looked up to thank Mike again, but he was gone. He shrugged and smiled. He didn't care where Mike went as long as he had the tickets. He put the tickets back in the envelope and tucked it in his pocket. He walked back to the cab and told the driver to take him home. He couldn't wait to tell his friends about his purchase. He was going to see Metallica live. He didn't notice that Mike was watching him from across the street, holding a gun in his hand. Mike waited until Jake got in the cab and drove away. Then he followed him in his own car. He knew where Jake lived because he had checked his phone number online before meeting him. He had planned this scam from the beginning. He had printed fake tickets using his computer and printer at home. He had posted an ad on Craigslist using a burner phone and a fake name. He had lured Jake into meeting him at a public place where he could easily escape if things went wrong. He had taken Jake's money without any trouble or suspicion. He had made $400 in less than an hour. But he wasn't satisfied with that amount. He wanted more. He wanted Jake's wallet, phone, and keys too. He wanted everything Jake had. He followed Jake to his apartment building and parked his car nearby. He got out of his car and walked towards the entrance with his gun hidden in his jacket pocket. He saw Jake get out of the cab and walk towards the door with a smile on his face. Mike waited until Jake opened the door and entered the lobby before he made his move. He ran towards him and pointed his gun at his back. "Hey, buddy," "Don't move," he shouted. Jake froze and turned around slowly. He saw Mike holding a gun at him and felt a wave of fear wash over him. "What? What do you want?" he asked nervously. "You know what I want," Mike said coldly. He grabbed Jake by the collar and dragged him into a corner of the lobby where no one could see them. He pressed his gun against Jake's chest and demanded, "Give me your wallet, phone, and keys. And don't try anything funny, or I won't hesitate to use this." Trembling with fear, Jake fumbled in his pockets and handed over his belongings. Mike quickly snatched them from his trembling hands and shoved them into his own pockets. Satisfaction spread across his face as he realized he had successfully pulled off the scam. "Now listen carefully," Mike sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "If you even think about reporting this to the police or trying to track me down, I'll make sure you regret it. Consider yourself lucky that you're still alive." Fear and anger mingled within Jake as he stared into Mike's eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe how quickly his dream of seeing Metallica had turned into a nightmare. He had fallen victim to a heartless crook who had exploited his passion for the band. As Mike made his way towards the exit, a surge of adrenaline coursed through Jake's veins. Determination replaced his initial shock and helplessness. He couldn't let this criminal escape without facing the consequences of his actions. Ignoring the pain in his chest from where Mike's gun had pressed against him, Jake took a deep breath and lunged at the thief. Caught off guard, Mike stumbled backward, and the gun slipped from his grasp. Jake seized the opportunity and tackled him to the ground, his desperation fueling his strength. Blow after blow landed on Mike's face as Jake unleashed his anger and frustration. With every punch, Jake's determination grew stronger. He was no longer just fighting for himself, but also for justice. Mike had not only stolen his money, but also his trust and the joy he had anticipated from attending the concert. The struggle continued, each man fighting for control. But Jake's determination and rage gave him an edge. With one final blow, he rendered Mike unconscious, his body slumping to the floor. Breathing heavily, Jake stood up, his knuckles bruised and bloodied. He looked down at the defeated criminal lying before him, realizing that he had just reclaimed a sense of justice for himself and potentially prevented Mike from victimizing others. Grabbing his belongings from Mike's pockets, Jake made his way back to his apartment. Despite the disappointment and betrayal he had experienced, he was determined not to let this incident dampen his spirit. He would find a way to attend the Metallica concert, even if it meant starting from scratch in his search for tickets. With a newfound resilience, Jake picked up his phone and began scouring the internet once again. He refused to let the actions of one deceitful individual shatter his dreams. This time he would be cautious and vigilant, ensuring that he dealt only with trustworthy sellers. And most importantly, he would not let anyone or anything deter him from finally witnessing his favorite band's electrifying performance. As Jake began his search anew, a glimmer of hope returned to his eyes. He was determined to turn this unfortunate chapter into a triumph and make his dream a reality, even if it meant facing obstacles along the way. After all, the spirit of a true fan could never be extinguished by a single act of deceit. In 2016 in New York City, Jake Miller was a college student who needed some extra money to pay for his tuition. He decided to find a part-time job through Craigslist, hoping to find something easy and flexible. He browsed through the job listings and saw an ad that caught his eye. It said, "Looking for a personal assistant to help with various tasks. No experience required. Flexible hours. $20 per hour. Contact me if interested." Jake thought it sounded too good to be true, but he decided to give it a try. He replied to the ad and asked for more details. He received a response from someone who claimed to be the employer. He said his name was Mark Johnson, and he was a businessman who needed some help with his daily errands. He said he could meet Jake at a nearby cafe the next day to discuss the job. Jake agreed to the meeting and wrote down the time and place. He packed his backpack with his resume, laptop, and phone. He took the subway to the cafe and waited for Mark to show up. He checked his phone and saw a text message from him saying he was almost there and asked Jake to wait for him inside. Jake thought it was strange, but he decided to comply. He entered the cafe and looked for a table. He saw a man wearing a suit and tie sitting at a corner table. He had a briefcase and a coffee cup on the table. He looked up and smiled at Jake. Jake assumed he was Mark and smiled back. He walked towards him and introduced himself. "Hi, are you Mark?" "I'm Jake. I'm here for the job interview," he said. "Hi, Jake. Yes, I'm Mark." "Nice to meet you," he said. He gestured for Jake to sit down across from him. Jake did so and placed his backpack on the floor next to him. "Thanks for coming. I appreciate your interest in the job," Mark said. "No problem. Thank you for considering me," Jake said. "So, tell me about yourself. What are you studying?" Mark asked. "I'm studying business administration at NYU. I'm in my second year," Jake said. "That's great. I'm also a business graduate from NYU. Small world," Mark said. He smiled and nodded. He seemed friendly and genuine. "So, what kind of tasks do you need help with?" Jake asked. "Well, I run a small company that deals with online marketing and e-commerce. I need someone who can help me with some administrative work, such as managing emails, scheduling appointments, booking flights, etc. Nothing too complicated or demanding," Mark said. "That sounds doable. How many hours per week do you need me?" Jake asked. "It depends on the workload, but I'd say around 10 to 15 hours per week. You can work from home or anywhere you want, as long as you have internet access and a phone," Mark said. "That sounds perfect for me. How soon can I start?" Jake asked. "As soon as possible." "How about tomorrow?" Mark asked. "Sure, why not?" Jake said. He was excited about the job offer. It seemed like an ideal opportunity for him. "Great, then it's settled. Welcome aboard," Mark said. He reached into his briefcase and took out a contract form and a pen. He handed them to Jake. "It is a contract form. Just fill it out and sign it," he said. Jake took the form and looked at it briefly. It seemed standard and straightforward. He filled out his personal information and signed it at the bottom. "Here you go," he said. He handed back the form and the pen to Mark. "Thank you," Mark said. He took the form and put it back in his briefcase. "Now there's one more thing I need from you before we start working together," he said. "What is it?" Jake asked. Mark leaned forward and lowered his voice. "I need you to come with me right now," he said. Jake was confused by his sudden change of tone. "What do you mean? Where are we going?" he asked. Mark looked around nervously and then whispered in Jake's ear. "I'm sorry, kid, but this is not a real job interview. This is a kidnapping." Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he heard those words. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What? What are you talking about? This is a joke, right?" he asked. Mark shook his head and grabbed Jake's arm. "No joke, kid. This is serious business. You're coming with me whether you like it or not," he said. He pulled Jake out of his seat and dragged him towards the exit of the cafe. Jake tried to resist and scream for help, but Mark was stronger than him and covered his mouth with his hand. "Shut up. Don't make a scene. If you cooperate, maybe we'll let you go alive," he said. He pushed Jake out of the cafe door and into a waiting car with tinted windows. He opened the door and threw Jake inside. He got in after him and slammed the door shut. Jake saw two other men sitting in the front seats of the car. They were wearing masks and gloves and had guns in their hands. They looked at Jake with cold eyes. "Who are these guys? What do they want from me?" Jake thought in panic. The driver started the engine and drove away from the cafe quickly. Mark took out his phone and dialed the number. "Hey boss, we got him," he said into the phone. He listened for a moment and then nodded. "Okay boss, We'll take him to the warehouse as planned, he said. He hung up the phone and turned to Jake. You're in big trouble, kid, he said with a smirk on his face. You just became our hostage. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the gravity of the situation. Fear and confusion consumed him as he struggled to make sense of the sudden turn of events. How had a simple job interview led to this terrifying ordeal? Thoughts raced through his mind, contemplating possible escape routes or ways to alert someone of his predicament. As the car sped through the city streets, Jake's mind raced with questions. Who were these people? What did they want from him? And most importantly, would he be able to survive this harrowing experience? He knew he had to stay calm and think of a plan. His life depended on it. Glancing at his surroundings, Jake noticed a small glimmer of hope. His backpack, which contained his laptop and phone, sat beside him on the car floor. Despite the perilous situation, he clung to the idea that these devices could be his lifeline. If he could somehow access them without raising suspicion, he might be able to reach out for help. Jake discreetly shifted his body, inching closer to his backpack, all while keeping a watchful eye on his captors. The car continued its relentless journey, weaving through the city's labyrinthine streets. Jake's heart raced with every turn, afraid that his captors might discover his intentions. After what felt like an eternity, the car finally came to a halt. Jake glanced out the window and realized they had arrived at a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place appeared deserted, with no signs of human activity nearby. It seemed like the perfect location for a sinister operation. Mark, the man who had posed as his potential employer, opened the car door and gestured for Jake to step out. With a gun pointed at him, Jake had no choice but to comply. The two other men in masks followed closely behind, their menacing presence sending shivers down his spine. As they entered the dimly lit warehouse, Jake's senses heightened. He took mental notes of the layout, hoping it would aid him in devising a plan. The air smelled of dampness and decay, adding to the ominous atmosphere. He knew he had to act quickly, as time was running out. Mark led Jake to a small, grimy room within the warehouse. The room contained only a rusty chair and a flickering light bulb that cast eerie shadows on the walls. With a rough shove, Jake was forced into the chair, his hands bound tightly behind his back. His captors stood before him, their cold stares stripping away any hope of mercy. Now let's get down to business, Mark said, his voice laced with malevolence. We know your family has money, Jake, and we want our share. We're going to contact them and demand a hefty ransom for your safe release. Jake's heart sank as he realized the extent of their plan. Not only had they deceived him into captivity, but now they were exploiting his family's wealth for their own gain. Fear and anger swelled within him, fueling his determination to find a way out. As Mark spoke on the phone with an unknown person, outlining their demands, Jake focused on his surroundings. His mind raced, contemplating possible escape strategies. He felt a glimmer of hope when he remembered his phone concealed within his backpack. If he could just manage to retrieve it without arousing suspicion, he might be able to contact the authorities discreetly. With a moment of distraction provided by Mark's intense conversation, Jake discreetly maneuvered his body, slowly inching toward his backpack on the floor. His heart pounded in his chest, each second feeling like an eternity. He silently unzipped the bag, his fingers trembling with urgency. In 2018 in Los Angeles, Ryan Lee was a high school student who wanted to ace his exams. He was a smart and ambitious kid who dreamed of going to Harvard someday. He studied hard and did well in most of his subjects, except for math. He hated math and struggled with it. He knew he needed some extra help to improve his math skills and score high on his exams. He decided to hire a tutor through Craigslist, hoping to find someone who could teach him math in a fun and easy way. He browsed through the tutor listings and saw an ad that caught his eye. It said, "Math tutor available for all levels. Experienced and qualified teacher. Guaranteed results. Affordable rates." Contact me if interested. Ryan thought it sounded perfect for him. He replied to the ad and asked for more details. He received a response from someone who claimed to be the tutor. He said his name was Alex Smith and he was a math teacher at a local college. He said he could tutor Ryan at his home or at a public place of his choice. He said he charged $20 per hour, which was much lower than the average rate for tutors in Leh. Ryan agreed to the offer and gave Alex his address. He said he preferred to have the tutoring sessions at his home, since his parents were usually away at work and he had the house to himself. He said he could start the next day after school. Alex agreed to the schedule and said he would be there at 4 p.m. He asked Ryan to prepare some math problems that he wanted to work on. Ryan was excited about the tutoring session. He hoped Alex would be a good teacher and help him overcome his math difficulties. He prepared some math problems from his textbook and waited for Alex to show up. He checked his phone and saw a text message from Alex saying he was outside his house. Ryan opened the door and saw a man standing on his porch. He was wearing a leather jacket and jeans. He had a backpack and a baseball cap on. He looked nothing like a math teacher. "Hi, are you Ryan?" he asked. "Yes, I am. Are you Alex?" Ryan asked. "Yes, I am. Nice to meet you," he said. He smiled and extended his hand. Ryan shook his hand and invited him in. "Come on in. I have some math problems ready for you," he said. "Great. Let's get started then," he said. He followed Ryan into the living room. Ryan pointed to the couch and said, "You can sit here. I'll sit here." He sat on the opposite couch and placed his backpack on the floor next to him. He took out his textbook and opened it to the page with the math problems. "Okay, so these are the problems I want to work on," he said. He showed Alex the book. Alex nodded and took out his backpack. He opened it and took out something from inside. It was not a book or a calculator. It was a gun. He pointed it at Ryan and said, "Sorry, kid, but this is not a tutoring session. This is a robbery." Ryan felt a surge of fear as he saw the gun in Alex's hand. He couldn't believe what was happening. What? What are you talking about? This is a joke, right?" he asked. Alex shook his head and cocked the gun. "No joke, kid. This is serious business. You're going to give me all your money and valuables right now," he said. He got up from the couch and walked towards Ryan. Ryan backed away from him and tried to reach for his phone, but Alex was faster than him. He grabbed Ryan's phone and threw it across the room. He pushed Ryan down on the couch and pressed the gun against his head. "Don't move, don't scream, don't do anything stupid," he yelled. He searched Ryan's pockets and took out his wallet. He opened it and saw some cash and cards inside, took them out and stuffed them in his own pocket. He looked around the room and saw a laptop on a table nearby. He walked over to it and picked it up. He checked if it was locked or not. It was not locked. He smiled and said, "Nice laptop you got here, kid. I'll take that too." He put the laptop in his backpack and zipped it up, looked around for more things to steal, but there was nothing else of value in sight. He decided he had enough for now, walked back to Ryan, who was still lying on the couch with the gun pointed at him. He looked at him with contempt and said, "You're such a loser, kid. You think you're so smart, but you're so dumb. You fell for my trap so easily. You should have known better than to trust strangers online." He laughed mockingly and said, "Well, thanks for your generosity, kid. You just made my day." He turned around and headed for the door. Ryan felt angry and humiliated by Alex's words. He felt like he had been violated by him. He felt helpless and hopeless. He didn't know what to do next. He had just lost his money, his phone, his laptop, his dignity to a stranger who had fooled him online. He had nothing left. My opinion. Most of these stories would not have happened if the victims had been more attentive to various little things. For example, in a recent story, a boy invited a stranger into his house, which is strictly forbidden. Be careful and see you again. 11.